Welcome to the May 14th, 2012 edition of Research Business Daily Report. Hi everybody, I'm Bob Lederer, editor and publisher at RFL Communications. We had a terrific weekend and we trust you did too. If you joined us last Thursday, you heard Phil Reeve of Reeve & Associates highlight a number of things, including a dramatic recent lift in advertised research jobs, the emergence of multiple research positions inside client companies, and how employers' tortoise-like timing in extending research offers may finally be speeding up. He also expressed real hiring consideration for unemployed researchers, which is particularly good news, and revealed calls from companies that haven't been in touch with him about research job openings since the start of the Great Recession. Yes, it seems new market research job opportunities are flowering. Today, in part 2 of our interview, Phil shares some changes taking place inside many companies and explains why he expects the presidential election to further break up the hiring logjam. Phil, with a better, more opportunistic marketplace for particularly people who are looking to get hired, what's the compensation picture look like?
Certainly increased compensation is going to be needed for those to consider moving as well as employees who want to make the move. We've seen offers put out there from laterals to 20% increases. Ultimately, the ones that get filled are the ones that make 15 to 20% increases on those that are employed. The reason being, a lot of employers don't like to hear that, but the truth of the matter is most of those employees may have been receiving very little raise or no raise for a number of years, and for them to feel comfortable in making a move, it has to be a significant increase to make that change.
And the companies are more malleable as far as being willing to offer more consistently that 15 to 20% range that they weren't a year ago?
No, that's kind of the catch-22. Unfortunately, the ones that have kind of fallen on their sword and said, "Uncle, we whatever, we have to pay what's appropriate to get this person in, we'll get it done." But those are very few and far between. The employer is still struggling with understanding why they have to pay that traditional increase. As I explained to everybody when they ask me about compensation increases, in usual markets, if you stay in a job, you get a 3 to 5% increase. So as a minimum, someone's going to need at least 10% to make it worthy of note for them to move. With changes in benefits these days, that can swing the dollar amounts dramatically as well. You may offer somebody $5,000 or $10,000 more than they're making, but that may be going backwards depending on what your benefit outlook may have.
I've heard about the relative health of the United States economy actually being a potential boon for research and other hiring here, as companies look perhaps not at Europe or look away from Europe with its particular struggles and look opportunistically at what we have here in America.
I would say that rings true from my experience anyway. I've had calls from multiple companies out of Europe that I've never done work with in the past who are either growing or setting up groups or divisions here to do more and more market research as their counterparts in the rest of Europe are lagging. I think there's a consumer demand that's still growing and a desire for information and data that the U.S. holds number one in.
Okay. Are there perhaps a handful of things that are going to happen because just time marches on that are going to push the real dramatic increases in hiring that we're not yet seeing?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. When I just look at things from a big picture, the stock market's at an all-time high. There's a demand, a number of jobs being advertised and asked to be filled that aren't getting filled. So there's pressure being built there. And everybody talks about confidence. I think once the election period is over, everyone will then have a confidence in knowing which direction whatever political party is going, and employers then can feel comfortable in knowing what economically that means for them from a hiring perspective.
Okay. We've talked about the lag in time in which offers are being presented to people. But one of the other issues here that I've heard you make reference to are, I guess I would call them human resources protocols, which gets to checking out the backgrounds and dealing with the employees perhaps more directly and more honestly. Are those things really going to change, and what does that encompass?
I think the issue typically with most departments, even human resources, is that they have limited resources. They need to fill multiple positions, especially when research comes up. Research is like a strange stepchild that a lot of them don't understand. So from a screening standpoint, they may struggle with understanding who they need to hire, and that process can drag on longer as they're trying to learn what that role entails. And multiple phone interviews and bring somebody in for one interview and then meeting other people and then references. The big concern is they do not want to be held accountable for making a bad hire, which is certainly understandable. But that usually means that the good candidates will disappear and ultimately they can't make a good hire.
Can you really afford to be so defensive in making a decision?
I think at some point you just have to jump in with 2 feet and go on some faith. Go with the faith of your hiring manager that's interviewing somebody. Look at skill set, as opposed to saying this person needs to have 110% of what we're looking for. There's going to be no challenge for that person. You're going to need somebody that has 70 to 80% that's going to learn and grow, so that way the candidate feels comfortable in learning something new, and so the employer gets somebody that will stay around longer.
Okay. I'm not sure that you could really put a time frame on this, but I've heard you talk about the fact that you're actually dealing in some cases with CFOs in hiring decisions and such. When is that, I could call it responsibility or authority or some other, good word, but when is that going to be wrested away from the finance people and put back in the hands of the person who actually has to make a hire?
That's a good question. I mean, if I had a crystal ball, that would be great to figure that out. Unfortunately, I believe that's going to hang around longer than it should, just because people are still extra cautious about where their expenses go. But as the demand pushes on and as multiple positions need to be hired, as we were talking before, some companies coming in with 50 and 20 plus jobs that need to get filled, they're going to have to let go of those purse strings to move the business forward to ultimately make more money. Because as you know, businesses, especially service businesses like market research, are built around their people. And if you want to make more money, you hire good people, and ultimately everyone will make more money.
And you can't just look at it from a productivity standpoint the way you would on some manufacturing capability or technologically based, situation.
Correct. As we were discussing before, research, it takes time. Not just the data analysis and information may be collected faster or in different methods, but since there's more information out there, sometimes it's harder to make great decisions and then writing appropriate reports to present something appropriate for your end client to make a good decision about where they spend their dollars on either a new product or an advertising campaign or whatever it may be.
Phil, thank you for your terrific insights, and we look forward to speaking with you again in the near future.
Great. Thanks again.
Our thanks to Phil for his time and his information sharing. Before we go, I wanted to share a piece of data that I came across over the weekend. Nielsen reported that as of this past March, more than 50% of U.S. mobile phone subscribers now own a smartphone. And that's a percentage that has grown from under 48% since only last December. So a boom in mobile market research activity really could be on the next wave if smartphone product momentum, as expected, continues. Let's be on the lookout for that. That's the Monday, May 14th, 2012 edition of Research Business Daily Report. I'm Bob Lederer. Hope you have a great day, and we look forward to presenting you with some more research information that you just won't find anywhere else when we get back together tomorrow.